Welcome to another episode of the Endurance Matters podcast. I am your host, Justin Metzler, and I have the pleasure in studio today to have Erin Carson. Erin, welcome to the show.
I'm so stoked to be here. Thank you, Justin.
All right, well, I start off the podcast with an icebreaker, hard-hitting question. Today, my question for you is, what is the worst, funniest, or most dangerous exercise you've seen someone attempt in the gym? The kind that kind of had you biting your tongue and they pulled it off somehow?
Well, what defines pulling it off, really? Like, they didn't die?
Didn't go to the hospital.
They didn't die. They didn't go to the hospital. Oh, I've seen some crazy stuff. I think that when people try to add load to pull-ups and they grab, like, they'll put a belt around their waist and then they've got dumbbells or plates hanging between their legs and then they lose their grip and they fall. And it's just... That's a good one. I've been really lucky. I work in places and I choose to work in places where not a lot of crazy stuff happens. But when I left Rally Sport and we knew we needed a new place to train, I went over to Crunch. My mind was blown how the rest of the world lives in fitness.
$9.99 a month is going to bring out some ideas, I think.
There were people like dressed up like ninja warriors, like normal Tuesday afternoon and full costume. But yeah, there's some pretty crazy stuff in some gyms. But I think I've been pretty lucky. Not too much crazy stuff.
All right, that's cool. Well, first off, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Okay, so my name is Erin Carson. I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I'm super blessed to live in Boulder, Colorado. And I think I've always been passionate about strength for sport. Strength for sport is different than strength for strength. And outcomes really should be based on the success of your athletes. And so I work with really a lot of the top 1% in running and triathlon and cycling. And the outcomes that we're always after is that the sport gets better, the placement gets better, the ranking gets better. The athlete wins a world championship maybe, or just continues to ascend and get better. So that's been my focus, and I've been really careful through my career to stay in my lane. And I'm a strength coach, not an endurance coach, but I'm there to support and be really comfortable with that role of being support staff. And you and I have done a lot of work together, and we've always wanted to include the sport coach as part of the team. And I love being part of a team. So I'm a strength coach. I want to be measured by the performance of my athletes and the success of my athletes as they experience their sport. And I don't want to compete with endurance coaches. I want to support the journey. So that's who I am. I'm passionate about continuing education. I continue to learn more every day, surround myself with super smart people, and try and stay ahead of the curve, but also recognize that newer isn't always better and that the fundamentals are what champions tend to be built on.
100%. Well, you touched on a lot of points that I want to dive deeper into, but I first wanted to start off by maybe talking about how you ended up here in Boulder. So you played on the CU basketball team.
Yeah. So I'm from Canada, from British Columbia, and I was recruited as a shooting guard, and took 5 recruiting visits and had the chance to choose. I was really lucky. I was pretty good coming out of high school, and I could choose wherever I wanted to go, and I chose Boulder because Boulder is spectacular. It's a spectacular place to live. It was the best education that I could choose for myself. It was an up-and-coming basketball program, so I knew I could contribute. And then I looked big picture, like where would I want to live after college? So great education, great place to live, quality of life. And I came to Boulder, and I did leave to go to graduate school to Louisiana, which reinforced that I should come back to Boulder.
Yeah, that's two very polar opposite things.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have it together as a high schooler? Because I feel like a lot of 16, 17-year-olds aren't necessarily thinking about, where do I want to maybe, plot my roots for the future. Were you always thinking that way?
I'm a bit of a route plotter. Yes. Yeah. Always thinking for the future. 100%.
Cool.
I like to live in the moment. That's probably my biggest challenge. But no, always thinking ahead.
Cool. Well, you played basketball in school. Obviously, that was probably a big part of your journey there, but you also got your degree in kinesiology and business, which was probably foreshadowing for your success in the future. What was your plan coming out of college, and what did it look like sort of entering the real world?
Well, it wasn't being a strength coach. It was being a Division I assistant basketball coach, leading into maybe having my own program someday as a head coach. I was a little bit ahead of my time in those days. I was raised, quote unquote, by an extremely brilliant basketball mind from here at the University of Colorado, Sealberry. So I feel like I had really good basketball chops, and I thought everyone had really good basketball chops. And then I went to other universities, and I realized that a lot of new head coaches coming out of Division I were very good recruiters, but they weren't really great at technical basketball, whether it be strategy or teaching skills to players and that kind of stuff. So I came out of college really wanting to be a basketball coach, but I tend to steamroll a few of the assistants, and that didn't make me a very popular person. And I was technically smart, but I wasn't socially smart. So you got to play the game a little bit. You got to know the right people. You got to build relationships and friendships. And I kind of thought if I got smarter in the topic, that would serve me well. And I think knowing people and being attentive to humans was more important than I thought at that point. I know it now, but I didn't know it then.
Sure. And when does it transition to being more strength training oriented?
You know, when a few doors closed for me in college basketball, I kind of settled in. Okay, like what's Plan B here? Like, how can I lead a life and a professional life where I can have an impact? I like having an impact. I like being successful. I know what success looks like and feels like. And I love strength training, and I'm good at it, and I have a lot of education in it. And I realized at that time, not a lot of endurance athletes were doing strength training or what I would deem correct strength training that would serve their performance. You know, you could see a lot of the professional runners come in, they'd grab 2-pound dumbbells and pretend they were running with them. And I'm like, wow, that's really ineffective and creates a lot of fatigue. And, you know, is that making you stronger? And so I was able to see a lot of what was happening and then kind of chart a path on how I maybe could make an impact. And through education, started seeing a bigger picture of understanding movement as opposed to strength and what strategy that you have that could create better movement or more economical movement. You know, in running, you talk about running economy and being comfortable on the bicycle. How can I create more comfort for the athlete so that they can do what they love with more ease, better, faster, and I think stronger is better. And so gained the trust of a few athletes early, showed some good success, and then it kind of just showed that this is possible. This could be a cool thing.
So you're very well known for being sort of in the endurance sport community. Being in Boulder, did the athletes find you, or did you find endurance sport and then sort of pursue those athletes?
Well, important to note that I worked at a very nice health club where all the athletes really enjoyed working out. And initially it was mostly runners. So we have Frank Shorter, Kara Goucher, Dave Scott was a big part of our early years at Rally Sport. So there was only 2 clubs in Boulder really at that time. And so I had access. And so I had conversations and I met people. Remember what I didn't do well in my early career? I started just building friendships and not saying, hey, I want to be your strength coach. Hey, I want to be your strength coach. I just ask a lot of questions, learn a lot. Where were their pain points? And not going to lie, watching Dave Scott prepare for some of his Ironman in Hawaii, Dave was very much ahead of his time, lifting heavy weights and getting under load. And I was like, that's smart. That's the smartest guy in the room right there. And he was a champion and proven over and over again that through performance, that what he was doing was correct. And nobody even at Ironman was like, well, what does Dave do going in? He must just swim, bike, run all the time. And I'm like, yeah, he did a lot of that. But he did a lot of really good, focused strength work in the gym. And so seeing that outcome, how can I support and broaden the opportunity for endurance athletes to trust and learn and understand and then show it through their performances.
Sure. I want to talk more about Rally Sport because that was just a very interesting time. I obviously was there for, 6-7 years in my career. Talk to me about how you got in there and how it evolved to you owning the gym and having it be sort of yours.
Yeah, so it's competitive business, and you want people to spend time in the gym. The Boulder is an outdoor community, right? Everybody loves to ski, rock climb, ride their bikes, do triathlon. And every summer, our membership would go down like 40%. And so we'd struggle through the summer. And the owner at the time, Denny, was like, we need to build a nicer pool, a lap pool. And then that's going to enhance our summer participation. So he actually spent a long time planning. We built the best small pool ever.
It was legendary, that pool.
Legendary small pool. But it was terrific. And a lot of championships were won, not only in triathlon, but also in open water swimming and in swimming in general. We did really, really well with that. And the goal was to just create this more roundedness. And then through my own education as a strength coach, for performance, we were like, if you strength train year round, your skiing is going to be better in the winter. If you strength train year round, in addition to cycling, you're going to be more comfortable on the bicycle. And so we started to create this environment and this training kind of philosophy within our club that this was the place to be, because all of us would support activities. And so I started hiring a bunch of trainers, coaching and teaching a lot of those trainers how to be better trainers and not just train for strength and how much weight can you lift, but speak to our community, speak to our members. And through that, I was able to build a staff and a team of over 30 trainers, all working 20 to 30 hours a week, paying them really, really well so we didn't turn over trainers. And I did a lot of consulting for a lot of gyms around the world, around the country, on how to create that kind of team. But all of it was strength for performance, and each trainer had a passion. And so I love endurance sports. I like basketball. It served me very well, but I prefer to train a runner over a basketball player. But a lot of my team, my trainers, they love basketball, or they love football, or they love skiing. And I'm like, well, then train your people to ski better, train your people to have better basketball. And we built an amazing business with that philosophy. And it stabilized the business in a really, really cool way until the building got super expensive to fix all the time. It was a 45-year-old building, concrete building built for racquetball. We had a good start with the pools, but we started to create a new vision, and we were going to create a bigger pool, a smaller training facility, more like 25,000 square feet, bigger pool. And so we started being open to sell our land. In 2019, December, we closed. We signed a deal to sell the land. And I also had all of my investors on board to do the next thing. But then COVID came. And COVID changed the way people interact indoors and exercise. And we went through that together. So it's something we'll never forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it also changed because it changed so dramatically. It turned out that second club that we were talking about, or even the one that we talked about in Longmont, we talked a lot lightly about that. It didn't come to fruition because it wouldn't have been a good business decision.
Sure.
We would have struggled.
Yeah, and I think Rally Sport in itself was such a unique space. Like you said, it was a racquetball gym that was converted into an endurance sport hub with a pool that was super functional. And there was just this inexplicable culture there and sort of vibe that I think would have probably been difficult to replicate elsewhere. Not that it wouldn't have been successful from a business perspective, but I think Rally Sport was very much one in its own thing. Yeah,
we kind of can't tell the real story without giving a huge thank you and thumbs up to Tim O'Donnell and Miranda Carfrae, because I knew who they were and I was a big fan. And I knew that they were driving 20 minutes across town to go swimming. And I said, you guys should just come and swim at Rally Sport. It's 5 minutes from your house. And so they were like, oh, okay. So they came over and they started swimming at Rally Sport. And then if Tim and Rinny were doing it, it was where the cool kids would be. And so they started building and rebuilding our culture at Rally Sport around triathlon. Dave had originally built it, but then Dave left. We parted ways, and he went to Flatirons, and he did an amazing job building that community down there. But then I was able to have a lot of success, starting with Tim and Rennie, because they're magic.
Sure.
They're amazing. So
yeah, and then was that where sort of Julie's squad came in, and then all of the other people sort of followed after that point?
yeah, it sounds short, but I think it was over 2 or 3 years that came to fruition. And having somebody like Julie Dibbins coaching on your deck was amazing. I mean, I got to go watch you guys swimming all the time, and everybody would come to Boulder for the summer. Craig Alexander, Tim Don, like everybody would come, and Rallysport was where they would come. And so we just all became people together, you know?
Sure.
It was less of a fandom place, although I'm a huge fan still, but it very much became a really strong human opportunity to be around some of the coolest people in the world doing things at a very high level. And that was very attractive, and it was really fun to be around.
Yeah, I mean, it was really impactful for me and Jeannie's career as well, to just sort of have it be normal, the standard be normalized. I think the standard of excellence there, just because of the people that were there, everyone was a world champion. And so the standard to win races was just there. And you're not going to find that sort of anywhere else in the country or anywhere else in the world. So it was really cool and definitely impactful in my career and Jeannie's career. I definitely want to dive into more about your training, strength training philosophy. So first off, can you tell me a little bit about how, in terms of triathletes, you define strength training to meet their goals? So you mentioned that you always want the strength training to support the activity, but what does that mean in the real world?
You know, it means being a good listener. It means asking good questions to athletes and saying, okay, when we look back on this year, so we're, as you and I are chatting, it's December 15th or something. So I've just gone through a process with most of my professional athletes and top age groupers where I've said, okay, talk me through 2025. How did we do? And pretty much everybody was pretty stoked on 2025. And I was like, where are our opportunities? So I can pretty much, I'm not going to, we can talk about Jeannie little by little, but everybody's mostly familiar. So I'll talk about Sarah Svensk, and she's a Swedish athlete who ended up having an extraordinarily good Kona this year. But we look at where she needs to get better. And if you talk to any female triathlete right now, they're like, we need to get better on the bike. And so if my pitch to Sarah was like, Sarah, are you comfortable on your bike? You know, TT is such an exquisite position. And she's like, most of the time. And most of the time tells me that there's an opportunity on the bike. And so I'm going to start in the early phases of 2026 with Sarah, really focusing on getting her more comfort on the bike. And her coach is in charge of making her a better cyclist. So not to be confused. The stronger Sarah gets, the more comfortable she'll be on her bike. The more comfortable she'll be on her bike, the more success her and her sport coach will have in creating a better cyclist. It's not my job. I can share in some of the success, but having a really good sport coach help you become a better cyclist is where that focus needs to be. And the coach really likes that I'm going to stay out of that. I'm not going to give her a bunch of exercises that look like cycling so that she'll pedal better. Like, that's not how that works. So my goal with Sarah is to give her more core activation, more core freedom. So tightness is a big problem from the cycling as she goes into her run. So we're focusing on making her more comfortable on the bicycle so that when she gets off the bicycle, she's experienced less tension, less tightness, and can just start freaking running. And then when we really start looking at the run, if she feels good, she's a very good runner. She showed that in Kona, you know? So comfort and freedom in the body is what strength will bring to a triathlete. And triathletes are fun because the biggest problem to solve truly is to go from a horizontal sport of swimming, where you need to be able to go through the water very, very well, be able to get on your bike and hold arrow and climb mountains and go down and feel confident. And then it's always a pivotal moment when you guys get off the bicycle and hopefully get upright with pain-free and just start running with freedom in your hips and legs, so, and lower body, and freedom in your upper body too. So
sure.
These are the opportunities. I believe that freedom comes through strength and not over strengthening.
Sure. Yeah, I'm curious to hear, because triathlon there's so many muscle groups involved. There's, variation between what swimming demands, what cycling demands, what running demands. How much are you thinking about strength training globally versus single sport strength or freedom or doing the reverse action of when it comes to swim, bike, run?
Well, tight hips are always an issue, right? So you can look at this understanding that in any sport, football, basketball, running, swimming, probably F1, like everything, because it's tightness of muscles on the front side of the body. It's difficult to strengthen a glute while your psoas or your hip flexor is tight. So there's balance. Some people don't need more strength; they need more balance. And because in a seated position, and then you add arrow position, there's so much shortness on the front side of the body. There are times when my athletes don't even go under load because they come in and they're so tight, and you're almost reinforcing bad habits. You're taking away the athlete's opportunity to be tall and strong in the position of running by putting them under load when they're not ready to be under load. So this is a huge advantage of seeing people in person, because I train a lot of people remotely, but I try to see everybody at least once a month, eyes on, and be able to see how they stand, where their eyes are, like the position of the body. So balance is always a precursor to adding a bunch of load. And the harder somebody trains on the bike, the harder they run up a mountain, the tighter they get and the smaller they get on the front side of the body, the more they're inhibiting the back side of the body. And from my education, different practitioners will call this different things. I call it reciprocal inhibition through the National Academy of Sports Medicine and through the NSCA. So in my nomenclature, it's reciprocal inhibition. Where there's tightness on one side of the joint, there's going to be inhibition or lack of function on the back. And we need then to open up the front so that we can, in fact, strengthen the back. And the more frequently we do that, and therein comes the consistency. If you don't do this consistently, you're just going to have to keep undoing the body before you can do to it.
Yeah.
Make sense?
100%. I am curious to hear your perspective on athletes and triathletes who have injury histories. And I think a lot of triathletes will struggle with that. I've obviously had a lot. Jeannie's had some now. And as you get older, that becomes something that is more difficult to manage. How do you sort of decipher what is necessary from a strength perspective, and then maybe what like a physical therapist or a doctor is going to prescribe? Because I've gone down the rabbit hole of a million physical therapists, and they'll look at me and say, "Oh, all you need is lateral glute stability." And
I love those guys.
And that's just the common theme, and that's how they're trained. And so I understand from a biomechanical perspective what they're getting after, but I also really resonate with the reciprocal inhibition component of the tightness and all of that. So I guess what's your perspective?
Tissue tolerance is a thing. Your tissue can only tolerate so much. If you take a personality profile of most of you people, you are achievers. You're very high achievers. And I want people to think about the bell curve of life, like in the bell curve of athletes. There's the people that will never do a triathlon, that will put them all the way on the left. They're not even interested. And then there's the people on the left side of the big part of the bell that they're thinking they're triathlon curious, or they're endurance sport curious. Yeah, someday I want to do a marathon. And so they're dabbling, they might be running a little bit. And then there's the front side of the bell. And most age groupers are going to be on the front side of the bell towards the final third. They're not the 1%. They don't have huge talent, but or balance. Like there's some people with a lot of talent that prefer to be lawyers or prefer to be business people than professional triathletes. So I never want to take anything away from them, but their drive has driven them to more balance and broadness in their life. The harder you push on tissue when it doesn't want to because it isn't recovered or it hasn't been fed. So we have to look at a nutritional component. We have to look at your genetic ability to repair your tissue. And then you have to take somebody who wants and thinks that if some is good, more must be better. And you have to tell them no. You have to say, no, you can't. You're not helping yourself anymore. And that has proven to be a very, very challenging conversation. And that doesn't always come from me, the strength coach. A lot of times, the sport coach and I will talk, but I see it. Like a lot of times I'll see the athlete more frequently than their sport coach does. And they come in and they're exhausted. And they don't like to even say they're exhausted. So 3 sports is a lot to keep up with. And then gym, and we always say then there's all these other protocols. And now we know that sleep is more important. I mean, even in your short life, and I think you was quite young, we have learned how important sleep is and rest to recovery. We've found more importance in fuel and what we need to eat to help our body. But each one of us has a different level of recovery. And then there's our nervous system, and that would be the really talented people, the really highly talented people who can run fast, ride hard. As they get older, now we have time as a variable. As they get older, they can't get away with what they got away with 4 years ago. And they just want to keep repeating. It was what was successful when I was 32. I'm going to repeat that because I was world champion when I was 32. But when you're 34 and you're doing the same workouts that you did when you were 32, you're now in a 34-year-old body. And that body might not need the same thing. And so a lot of variables, but personality is a big one, and acceptance of timing in our lives and how much we can handle, and knowing what are our recovery metrics. How do we know if we've spent enough time resting? So injuries, there's always something that someone missed, unless you're getting hit by something, because then you have a whole different story. Trauma is different than a slowly, like something that came on slowly. And Tim Don used to say whenever he would go for a run, if he felt a niggle, he'd just stop running. And he'd call Kelly and he'd say, come pick me up, can't run. And, and whether he was right or wrong, I don't know, because he ended up his career with trauma. We will never know how good Tim Don could have been. Yeah. We know he's an exceptional human. So that is cool because he's channeled a lot of that brilliance into other things for other people. And he's helping a lot of other people achieve now too. So, it comes all in different packages. You got to pay attention early. And when bad things happen, you have to circle back around and say, okay, I'm older. I got to do things a little bit different. I'm not eating enough. I got to eat more, and I got to eat more strategically, timing wise. I got to sleep more. And maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I'm doing too much in the gym. Maybe I'm doing too much on the bike. And maybe I'm not doing enough either. I mean, that's possible too, right? Yeah. There's so many things, Justin. It's a great topic.
Yeah, I'm curious, when you're having conversations with coaches and athletes, if we're going to assume that the high performers are on that far end of the bell curve, they're the ones who want to push it to the limit. The coaches, if they are remote coaches and they don't have the access or the availability to be in person, they might not understand recommendations of reduction, noticing the fatigue, because athletes are bad at reporting it. Remote coaches don't have anything other than metrics, which only are applicable to a degree. What do those conversations look like?
You can see it. The best coaches, I'm really lucky because I get to work with some of the best coaches in the world, with some of the best athletes in the world. The best coaches in the world see it in the data. The best coaches in the world will probably see it in the data and then reach out to the athlete and have a conversation. And then they'll get more data from the conversation. And then they'll make a shift. And the best coaches in the world build trust. And those top performers, when they trust their coaches, that's when the magic happens. And I think it's the most beautiful thing to see when an athlete trusts their coach. And when the coach does what he or she needs to do to build that trust. And that means being collaborative. I'm just going to be really clear here. I hate it when coaches say, trust the process. I freaking hate that. Yeah. Because you guys are smarter than that. Like, you deserve a full answer, not trust the process.
Couldn't agree more.
So, yeah, it's usually I'm second in line or third in line as a strength coach. I might be able to alert a sport coach just to look a little closer at something, but I'm been pretty lucky.
Yeah. So I guess, like all coaching, training is individualized. It's going to be very dependent on what an athlete needs. But I guess if there are age groupers out there listening who are sort of in that middle bell curve, right? Like they're just getting into it, or they're taking it pretty seriously and they don't know what to do on the strength front because I think sometimes, at least in my experience with all of my athletes that I've coached over the years, it's sort of, they want swim, bike, run, and they want minimum effective dose on the strength. And some of them are like, I just kind of do it whenever, or I'm using now ChatGPT or whatever, going on a YouTube video, maybe doing Easy Fit Mobility Monday.
Yeah.
Like, what's the right dose for someone listening? When, how much, and what?
I love minimum effective dose. It takes a few weeks, seeing someone a couple times a week, for me to figure that out. It's not an immediate thing. It's like a great chef. You know, you start and you've got this massive soup, and you're just going to put a bunch of stuff in there, and you taste it, and you're like, oh, too much salt. Like, man, too much salt. Let's pull the salt out, redo the soup. Oh, it's a little bit better. I like that soup. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, now I'm not hungry enough to eat enough protein. Oh, let's pull the meat out of the soup. Like, however it is, you need to slowly pare it back, and then you have to watch your enthusiasm and enjoyment and output in your training to find the balance. So if your cycling training is going well, you know it. If your run training is going well, you know it. And if you don't know it, you should figure out how to know. Like, I just had a really good run. Like, Training Peaks is lovely because it tells you your first, second, third. It shows you your rankings for different distances. You see my 20-second best time, my 1 minute best power, my 5 minute. Those are the indicators that training's going well. Mobility Monday for me on YouTube is kind of fun because I'm really consistent what I think. And I think people who appreciate that strength training isn't entertainment will realize that lateral gliding is a good thing, and I probably am going to do it forever. And just because I did 2 weeks of lateral gliding, which is a wide stance, anchored feet, and you're activating your glute med on one side and you're lengthening the adductor on the other side, that patterning is really important. So to keep coming back to boring things that you've done forever, I'm pretty reliable about boring. So people should, I think, be more bored in the gym. So if you're going to your gym every single day and it's new stuff, that would be a red flag for me. And that should be a red flag for endurance athletes. You know, if you go into the gym, you should have a squat, a lunge, maybe a deadlift. You should do some hanging, whether it's hanging knee raises or some pull-ups. There are certain categories that should be met. They're an important part of just being healthy, having good posture, but they shouldn't be super entertaining, and you shouldn't always be doing new things.
Sure.
So a lot of repeatability. You should also not be in the gym, in my opinion, longer than 40, 45 minutes. I think when I met you and Jeannie, you guys were doing like a 90-minute gym routine.
It's like I was almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
I
it was
think.
like, these poor people, I need to help them.
Yeah.
So it might have been one of our early conversations. You guys, you've been here a long time, and you do swim, bike, run too. Yeah. That's impressive.
Like extensive 10 by 5 rep back squats.
Yeah. And it was, it also is an important part of your TED Talk. It's an important part of your story. It was an important part of your athletic development. You just didn't need it anymore, I don't think, maybe. So, yeah, the sessions shouldn't be too long. You should also have stuff that you can complete really comfortably in the home, because family time and partner time is really important. I just think you're going to, if it's important to you to do well in a sport, you should see yourself ascend in the sport. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of being an age grouper, because you can see where you rank and where you finish. So even if you're 50th or even if you're 100th, well, maybe you start coming 80th. Well, that's a good sign. You know, you're going the right direction. And in the beauty for pros is we have rankings now. We have the Pro Series, we have PTO, and we have rankings. And we should see athletes move up the rankings and say, okay, we're moving in the right direction. So shouldn't be in there too long. It shouldn't be too entertaining. And high rocks is not a good idea for endurance athletes. It's a beautiful, cool thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm a CrossFit fan. I'm a high rocks fan. But if you want to use strength training to be good at running, high rocks might not be your best strategy.
Sure. Yeah. I am also curious to get your perspective on how, because triathletes like control. A lot of us really want a path towards where we want to go, whether that's in training or whether that's in strength training. And I'll get a lot of athletes who are like, I want to get to 50 miles of running a week. Yep. And they want to start at 20 and go 25, 30, 35, 40, just 45, 50, just like that, as if it were perfect. And I think strength training a lot of them think similarly, where, okay, I'm going to start with my deadlift at 200 pounds and I want to go up 10 pounds until week 12. And I've worked with some strength coaches who also think similarly, where it's like, we're going to do a 16-week progression to get you to a 1 rep max deadlift. I have struggled with the application to support swim, bike, run with that approach. How do you think differently and ensure that if we are going to deadlift or we are working towards a North Star goal, that you are adjusting that soup with it still being constructive towards where we want to go?
A really simple statement. How strong is strong enough? And I have a really unique opportunity, having worked with some really high-level cyclists, not in triathlon. And I know what they deadlift, and I know how they rank in the world as cyclists. And they don't deadlift very much, but they're the best cyclists in the world. I could say that very comfortably about female triathlon. I've worked with arguably one of the best female triathletes, formerly with Rinny, but also with Taylor. And I know exactly what she lifts. So it's very comfortable for me to say, you don't need to continue to go through that progressive overload approach in the weight room. And I think that's a really important thing about staying in my lane. You don't need to keep progressing in the weight room. You need to keep progressing on the bicycle. And once you achieve the kind of deadlifting or the kind of lifting that supports the training, so the tendon health, the tissue health, the muscle activation, the balance in the joint, the comfort on the bike, so that the bicycle continues to improve, you don't need to compete with that, with the deadlift. And it's another little saying. I have lots of little sayings, but risk and reward. It really, the heavier things get and the more technical things get and the more neural demand that comes into a lift or a movement, the more risk that comes into the conversation. And I can comfortably say that in my career of now over 20 years of really good focused work with endurance athletes, my athletes have never been hurt in the gym, ever.
Yeah.
And I'm really super stoked about that. And I'm not about to break that record, because even dropping a weight on their foot, I don't even let them touch weights pretty much. If I see them in person, I'm moving this stuff around. They're like, oh, I'll help you. And I'm like, no, don't touch that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think strength training as well, sometimes strength trainers want to prove their worth and show the metric. You know what I mean? Because it's not in swim, bike, run. As coaches, we can go out there and say, oh, well, you did a race and you improved your bike split. Okay, there's the data that my job is secure. There's nothing like that in the strength training world. It's not like we go and do a deadlift on the end of a triathlon. So do you ever struggle with that a little bit, of athletes saying, hey, I don't have something quantifiable to say?
You do have quantifiable. You just won a race.
There you go.
You've been coming 10th. Now you're coming 5th.
Sure.
I'm pretty good at explaining what happened. You're a more robust, resilient athlete. And if people that believe in themselves as athletes, my goal is to help them keep believing in themselves. And they have to like the sessions. They have to feel the difference. Working with Solomon now for over a year, I have a chance to work with some of the top ultra runners in the world. I'm now stepping into the road team a lot. What is really exciting, I have top-level marathon runners, top-level 5K and steeplechase runners, top-level ultra runners who are running UTMB, and they're running for days at a time, who have never been in the gym. And it's a clean slate. It's an opportunity. And if I teach them decompression breathing, or if I teach them how to understand the power of the diaphragm and core activation, or maybe even just bring to light where their strengths are already, that they don't need much. And they go for a run and they're like, oh, I did that breathing thing. I feel amazing. Oh, I just keep getting taller, not smaller. Like ultra runners get short. They lose disc height in their spines. So I've been really, really enjoying working with these runners who are it's like they're kids in candy store. Can we do that gym thing again? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, I'll see you Sunday. Like, it's really fun because their understanding of what happened in the gym looked a lot like football practice. And these are relatively young athletes. They're like in their late 20s. And they still, coming out of college, were working with the college football strength coach.
Wow.
And so they like you don't have to back squat unless you have back squatted your whole life. There's some athletes like Jeannie looks amazing with a bar on her back. Rinny looks great with a bar on her back. Taylor doesn't want to back squat, and I don't blame her. I don't think it's a great decision for her. So there's lots of different ways to do it. And it's super fun that adding in something that someone has never done.
Yeah, I mean, when we worked together, we never did a back squat. I think we did lots of front squat. We did a lot of Bulgarian split squat, plenty of deadlift.
Yep.
Those were effective movements for me.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I am curious to hear more about, you've talked about how much throughout your career you've worked with elite triathletes and runners. Are there any common threads that you noticed amongst the highest performers, physically or psychologically?
Well, everybody's a little different, to be honest. Like Tim and Rinny, they're just trusting. We have a beautiful relationship. They come in and they trust me. And we had a really good run together. They did really well. I learned a lot from them and with them. And so they were really trusting. I'm 14 months into my relationship with Courtney DeWalter. And Courtney, she's like, I'm a little bored. Can you, and this is somebody that runs for 24 hours and she's bored with her gym sessions. Wow, yeah. And I'm like, she's like, can we do more variety? And so I added more variety into her program and things are going quite well again, because she needs and wants more stimulus in the gym. So I'm excited for that. I think it's just becomes part of the day, part of the training week. And it's not something that athletes are looking to get out of their program. They don't want more to their program. They do what they're told. I'm really lucky because I think they just do what they're told by their sport coaches. They trust us. So if we lay it out and we get it done. Yeah.
That's like, you get a lot of people who are pros, they know how to be professional athletes. They know how to just come in the gym and sort of work. I am curious because what's the difference between someone like Courtney, who you don't work with in person, and all of the athletes that you do work with in person? What are the main differences in how you train them and maybe the decision-making flow chart for their workouts?
It's way more fun training in person. I really think that even if the listeners, if you have a chance to work with a really good hands-on, eyes-on coach, you should. And really good, like I have actually called hands-on, eyes-on coaches in Kansas and said, do my programming. I will give it to you for free with this athlete, but watch them closely, be there for them, entertain them, keep them jazzed, that kind of thing. If I got to see Courtney 2 times a week, we would have a lot more fun. It would be a lot more fun because I could see what she needed on that day and vibe what she needed because I'd be in her presence, and being around somebody is really cool. I've seen her once or twice a month pretty consistently. Solomon is amazing with the way they support their athletes. It's just better. But I can also use Zoom. So I do have a chance to see people on Zoom. I'm also super accessible through, people use WhatsApp to connect with me and talk to me. And then I have a big group of people that I see them at least once or twice a week in live sessions and that kind of stuff. So I try as much as possible to make the world as small as possible. But it is amazing how few people love endurance sports and strength and sit in my chair. Like, it's hard for a strength coach who's never ridden a time trial bike or never experienced the red line running to program that person and to imagine what they must feel like. And so I used to be a triathlete. I say used to because I just broke my bike. So I may or may never be another triathlete, but I know what it feels like. And I know when it feels uncomfortable. And I know you're laying there on the bars going, I need to sit up, but I'm faster if I'm aero. I should just stay here. And you have this whole conversation for 10 miles at a time and you're just hot and sweating. And how can I help people not experiencing that much of that?
Sure. So. If you're getting to a point where you're not maybe going to be doing as many triathlons, if you're thinking about that,
Yeah.
how are you still going to, I guess, challenge yourself to experience those things? Or do you feel like you have enough body of evidence over time to know what it feels like to time trial, to suffer, to be fatigued from training?
Yeah, I still love riding my bike. I just don't ride a TT bike anymore because I broke it. I fell off my kicker. Fell off my kicker. Is that pathetic?
Sometimes, things happen.
Yeah. Well, the sport has changed so much as well. So we're going to walk a line of building speed and power that we have never walked before. We're experiencing such an exciting change. I think the Taylor effect has been important. The how fast the boys are running has been important. So I work with Rudy Von Berg, and he's so transparent in his posts and stuff like that. So if you don't follow Rudy Von Berg and read his posts, because he's like, yeah, I'm just not fast enough. Like everything's getting so much faster. So we've got to walk a little bit closer to the risk. And I understand what that is. And it's also really important that I'm available. So if I was training and trying to win a world championship, I wouldn't be around as much. I'd be like, I got to cancel. I got to be riding, and that's not my jam. I think I have a pretty good idea. And I also ask really good questions. Jeannie's a really good example of that, because I feel like she's made some really good strides. And I know that you had been coaching her and will continue to support her on all levels. But I think she made a really good decision bringing Jared in to help guide in a really systematic approach to her bicycle. And I think we were pretty stoked on how she rode in Indian Wells. Yeah. And there'll be a growth period there, so it may take her another year to regain a world podium, but I believe that she will, and I love the journey that we're going to go on, and we're going to be patient and hopefully get back there.
Sure.
But I believe in her a lot.
Of course I do too.
I know.
I want to know as well, like, what are you seeing with these new athletes coming through? I think on the women's side, you've got Taylor, who's setting a new standard. You've got the Norwegians and others on the men's side to set a new standard. How do you take athletes like a Rudy, for example, who has been on a world championship podium before, but is feeling like he's a little bit behind the eight ball? What's it going to take to get him on a world championship win, a Kona win? I mean, I'm saying that he was just third in Kona 2 years ago. So he's there, but I think even himself this year, he's reflecting on 2025 saying, I need to step it up a notch. What are you thinking about from his training or athletes like him that's going to help people get to that next level?
Well, I think the first step has already been achieved, the recognition that something has to change. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. The other part of that, and as part of his team, we discuss this, is don't overreact. Don't try to throw a bunch of new ingredients at Rudy. Little stimulus changes and adjustments can go a long way in a very talented athlete. So we look back at that bell curve. The more talented the athlete is, the less they really need. So we are not going to overreact. We're not going to add a bunch more, and we're not going to freak out. We're just going to start to add a few more things that will make Rudy or serve Rudy to feel more confidence in his training. And that's exciting. If somebody was a little bit ranked a little bit lower, so he finished, I think, Pro Series 6th in the world. So a little thing will go a long way. Don't overreact. If somebody was number 26, that's on the cusp of, am I good enough? We need to get that person up into the top 15. We're probably going to add more. We're going to do more. We're going to take more risks, add more stimulus, maybe add more load. If somebody's number 66, we might do a complete overhaul. So recognizing where you are in your journey is going to be a really important part of the decisions that are made along the way. Or if you're an older athlete, it might be time to take some risks to see if you can get there. I don't think Jeannie's in that position. I think that there's other circumstances that have led to her time of coming back. And there's other people that are dealing also with relative energy deficit syndrome, which, Lionel has been so transparent. I love his story. I love him. I wish I knew him. I don't know him, but Lionel, if you're watching, I love you, man. You're my fellow Canadian. But he just speaks his mind, and he speaks from his heart. And I think that's incredibly valuable. Like, people don't lie. Like, when the pros lie about what they're dealing with and how they got there, it doesn't help anybody.
Totally.
So, yeah, I think taking some risks, but also being super smart to see if you're there. And that would be an older athlete who's been there.
Yeah. I think this is maybe Jeannie and I's perspective. I think you look at maybe someone like Taylor, you look at someone like Marinda, Rudy, for example. These people, even though they might have micro 6-month setbacks along the way, they have overarchingly been incredibly consistent. I think if you look at Jeannie and I, we were very consistent for 10 years, and the last 3-4 years have been a struggle, and now we're trying to build back. What's your advice to athletes like us who have shown that we can maybe get there? Jeannie in particular being on a world championship podium, world number 7. Now she's had a big regression. How do you get someone back to that super elite level?
You have to believe it in your heart. And you also have to recognize the women's field and the men's field are very different. Sure. The men's field is so massive, right? And there's T100, there's short course, there's 70.3. I mean, I think in my lifetime there didn't used to be a 70.3. There definitely wasn't T100. You know, it was either you did the Olympics or you did Ironman.
Sure.
And so there's an exciting opportunity to be patient. Like you can do a lot of non-pro series 70.3s, start feeling what it feels like to win, start feeling what it feels like to chase people down and find yourself as an athlete again and believe in it. And then just walk the walk of what you know is important. And if you know, the intangibles become more important, the sleep quality, the peacefulness, you know, I look at an athlete more often than not, and when I meet them in the first 24 hours of meeting an athlete, I'm like, do you meditate? And they're like, what? I'm like, do you meditate? Do you do breath work? And they're like, why would I do that? Like, and if that's the response, then that's an incredible opportunity because you're going to work hard. That's usually not the issue, that an athlete isn't working hard enough. You know, I've only seen that a couple of times where somebody was really talented and they just didn't work hard enough. And so they weren't successful. More often than not, the person is working as hard as they can work. They're doing all the tangible things they can do correctly. And then the other question is, well, what are those intangibles? How can I turn from a sympathetic drive, hard training session, and relax? So I can rest quicker and maybe I can rest better than the competition. Maybe I can find more balance. That would be an incredible opportunity. That would be an incredible thought process. Like happiness, peacefulness, the ability to breathe and regulate your nervous system is so important. And so I think with you and Jeannie, knowing you the way I do, I'd say your opportunities, you're always going to work. You're always going to do maybe just a little more than you were asked, you know? Mm-hmm. But you aren't kids anymore.
Yeah.
And so your ability to find peace, your ability to find happiness, your ability to close your eyes at night when you go to sleep and just go, oh, what a good day that was, you know? That's probably your biggest opportunity.
Sure. If there are athletes out there who are maybe similar to us, and I know there are a lot of athletes out there who maybe are similar, how much do you guide them with those things that maybe aren't directly correlated to strength training? If you see an athlete who's like, all right, well, yeah, we can fix this athlete's deadlift and we can give them, you know, some foundation training or whatever, that's going to help them, but they really have a big low-hanging fruit on mindfulness or breath work.
It is part of my job. It is part of my job.
And how do you implement that?
So I'll start with foundation training with Dr. Eric Goodman. He's a good friend. He's a good mentor. And the method of his teaching is, in my opinion, spectacular. It is an understanding of how the body flows, works, and can be implemented in all walks of life. I can take it, like, let's say you're in college and you have like 100 level, and then you become a sophomore, and now you're doing 200 level. I'm probably like a sophomore. Like my leadership for people is enough, but not if they want to go deeper. If they want to go deeper, I have teammates and people that I'll refer to. Let's go deeper. You know, if you want to go up and do graduate level work in breath work, I'm so proud to be the one that will usher you into that world on a deeper level, but I'm not the one that can do it. Like, I believe in experts. And like I said, I'm going to stay in my lane and explore possibilities of how deep somebody wants to go as a human.
Sure.
You know, we walk this planet for such a short amount of time, relative, and peacefulness and happiness are just so important, Justin. And yeah, you can't work harder to get those things.
100%.
But you can go deeper on some things that will lead you towards those things.
Sure.
Yeah.
100%. Well, that's very cool. This amazing insights here. Before we wrap up, I've got some rapid fire questions.
Okay, let's go.
All right. Number one, athletes. Can you give me one athlete who you had to hold back the most in the gym and one athlete who you had to push and motivate the most?
Justin Metzler.
I had to pull me back the most.
Well, I wasn't successful, but yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
Then the one that I had to push the most, I don't know. Maybe Morgan Pearson, but Morgan's so talented. I was probably wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
ended up doing great.
Yeah. Very insanely. Probably, yeah. I forget who I had on. I asked somebody who they thought was the most talented athlete in town, and they said Taylor and Morgan.
Yeah,
so
probably.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds right. All right, number two. Funniest or worst thing that has happened when watching one of the O'Donnell Carfrae kids that you never told mom and dad?
Oh gosh. That I never told mom and dad. Oh, well, I was riding bikes with Izzy right before they went to Beaver Creek with the family, and Izzy face planted off of her bike. And it was, I had to tell them. I did tell. I mean, I can't not tell a parent what happened. And I went home and I was like, oh my God, they're going to have to go to the ER. They're not going to the mountains. Everyone's going to hate me. And poor Izzy. I mean, the O'Donnell children will have more scars that they will grow through. But they, Rennie's such a cool mom. She's like, well, they're going to fall down a lot if they're doing life right. Yeah. So those are the kids, and those kids are awesome. So yeah, major face plant with Isabel off the bike. Oh, that was horrid.
I'd rather them be out riding and face plant than at home playing video games or something.
No, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Best round of golf, score and location.
Oh. Best round of golf, 72 on the Big Island at Nanea. And that's one of those things, if you know, you know. So if you Google it, you'll understand what a magical day that was. And I can't even say I did it by myself because I had a caddy. So, yeah,
Does that help that much?
Yeah, hit it here. Okay. The question is, can you hit it there?
Sure.
So I'm getting good enough that I can try to hit it there.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was pretty magical.
What is your least favorite strength exercise that gets a lot of hype?
Well, I love it and I hate it, the hex bar deadlift. Everybody thinks it's the golden ticket, and it's a ticket. It's a good ticket, but there's a lot of other tickets, and I think it's overplayed, completely overplayed. It's a great exercise, but it's very overplayed.
What is the most impressive thing you've seen someone do in the gym?
Oh, Taylor doing pull-ups. Taylor came to me and she goes, it's a total flex. I want to do pull-ups. And I had never, we worked together, a long time. We'd never, I was like, I don't like pull-ups. And Taylor came in and I'm like, okay, let's do pull-ups. And she's a pull-up freak now.
It's funny you say that because I remember Jeannie coming home one day.
And Jeannie does better pull-ups than Taylor. Note to self, just so you know.
Jeannie can rock some pull-ups. Yep. And then I was in my cast last year after my surgery. And she's like, I think you should be able to do pull-ups. How many can you do? And I was like, I don't know, 2. So I went in the gym and did 2. And then it was my mission for a year. And I got up to 3 by 10. And I was like, I can do pull-ups now. And now after my crash, I can't do them anymore. But I'm still once my shoulder gets better,
I'll
be
it's not
back.
A dictator of world championships because Taylor won many world championships. Rennie won world championships. T.O. had a lot of really impressive podiums, and we did 0 pull-ups. So you would say pull-ups might not be, they're a flex.
Yeah, totally.
But you don't need them to win a world championship.
It is a good thing to go in the gym and be like, I could bust out 10 pull-ups. You get a couple looks.
Fan. People like it. The runners really like it. They're like, wow, I'm doing pull-ups. If Emma Coburn is doing pull-ups, we should all be doing pull-ups.
100%. All right. And what's going on the rest of the day?
The rest of the day, well, this is crazy. It's December 15th. It's literally 63 degrees, I think, in Boulder, Colorado. Super sunny, 0 snow. And I think I'm going to go hit some golf balls.
I love it. I might see you over. If you're going to Lake Valley, I'm going to ride, and I'm going to be riding up Neva. I'll give you a little wave. I sometimes see you when I'm riding over there. I'll give you a little wave, and I'm like, I know where Erin's going.
Yep, I'm a practice freak.
She's getting down to 70 next time for sure.
Yeah, it's a good sport.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks,
awesome
Justin.
Talking to you today.
Thanks.
All right, we'll see you in the next episode.
Cheers.
Peace.